Okay, what up? In this video, I'm gonna be talking about what is spirituality and why you should care. And also give an explanation of how I got into it, because right now, if you guys don't know, there's a mass awakening that's happening right now. A lot of people are waking up. I was one of those people, you know, this year I really started getting into spirituality. So I just want to make a quick kind of video. This might not be a quick video, but I'm gonna give a video explaining what I think spirituality is, and also a list of why you should care, a list of benefits of living a spiritual life or starting your journey right now. Very worthwhile journey you want to get started on if you want to reach your true potential, if you want to become your best self. I'm gonna get through all of that. Like this video, subscribe, support locally owned small YouTube channels, and we'll get started, man. So for my personal story of how I kind of got into spirituality, this was the summer after my grade 12 year, and kind of also throughout first year university for me. So I went to a school called Carleton University for 1 year in Ottawa, and a lot of this kind of took place around that time, like 2018 to 2019. It wasn't like one specific thing that happened for me. I know a lot of people experience a big, like, earth-shattering thing, like a death in the family or just some like depression or something. But for me, it was something, I guess, gradual, where I always felt kind of like there's something else, you know, there's something more than just what I was experiencing, like through my senses. You know, when you're talking to someone and it's like the words that are coming out is regular and all, but you could always feel like a subtle energy in between an interaction. That's the best way I could describe it, except with everyday life. I could always felt there was some underlying thing going on. There's like something going on under the surface, and it was kind of confusing because I remember around that time I found it harder and harder to relate to my peers. I remember just feeling like the things that they were interested in, it wasn't landing for me. Like, I didn't care. Not like, oh, like I don't care about the interest type thing. It was like it was hard to relate to them, like on a human to human level. That's some first world thing too. It's a privilege for me to even dabble into spirituality, because if I was like poor or hungry, I wouldn't even have time to think about spirituality. It's a privilege to even ponder these things, these ideas. But I'm so grateful to just be able to, you know, having these experiences. But essentially, you know, around that time I was just kind of confused. I found it hard to relate to others. Like, it was almost like I didn't care about these things that other people cared about. Like, that sounds kind of pretentious, but it's like I was kind of like going through the motions of what everyone else was doing, but it didn't feel like I was really living my own life in a way. It was like at that time I was smoking weed like very often, almost every day. First year I was definitely smoking every day. Like, everyone on my floor was smoking weed every day. I remember just doing the same shit, you know, just hanging out with friends and doing school, but almost like my life was kind of just like passing by. And this wasn't like an existential thing, but I felt it was something that was going, like there was something that I wasn't understanding. I remember taking shrooms for the first time in 2018, and that kind of confirmed a lot of what I had been feeling. Like, I understood at that point that there was definitely something more to this physical reality that we're experiencing. And for one thing about psychedelics, I will say, is that you can't really awaken. I don't think that you can awaken off psychedelics. You can use it as a tool for higher consciousness, but you don't expect to just take like 5-MeO DMT and just awaken. Maybe you can, who knows? I haven't taken it, but that's just my assumption, that substances can't bring you any kind of permanent change in state. That's something that you have to work on, but it can give you insights and ideas and new ways of thinking that will accelerate certain, like, you know, your spiritual growth, for example. And for me, when I first took shrooms, I confirmed that there was something more. For sure, I knew that was like a moment for me that I realized, like, damn. I remember meditating on shrooms, and I remember I had my eyes closed, and it was one of the deepest meditations that I got into. And I wasn't like meditating frequently around this time. This is just when I started kind of getting into it. But I remember I just had the urge to meditate. I don't know how long I was meditating for. Could have been over 30 minutes, but I remember at first it was just like, you know, I just had my eyes closed, focusing on my breath. And then all of a sudden I started seeing, because I was on shrooms, of course, I started seeing kind of these visuals. And what I saw was these guides, you could say. They had blue skin, but they didn't look like humans. They were almost kind of cartoonish looking. It just had eyes, and I just knew that they were guides, and they looked super soft. And they were like pointing me in a direction, and I was following wherever they were pointing me, and eventually this kept going, and then they led me I started zooming out of the world. Like I was going further and further out, and all I could see was like the universe. And I was zooming out, and I was all of a sudden just put into this space of like nothingness, like straight nothingness, like no thoughts, pure, just like I was just in the universe, empty, alone. But it felt, I wasn't scared at all. It was almost like very peaceful. I don't know how else to describe it, but you know, I don't think that one event was like any sort of awakening or anything. I think it was just me having an out-of-body experience. Or I don't know if that's astral projection. I don't know what it is. Okay, I don't know the terms for it. I just knew that something weird happened when I was meditating on shrooms that day, and it was such a revelation. I told my roommate, I was like, yo, I need to get a tattoo right now. I want to remember this experience. I want to get a lightning bolt tattoo. I kept saying that to him. I was like, I need to get it. But I was still 17 at the time, so in order to get a tattoo, I'd have to get my parents' consent. So then I just waited like 2 weeks later, or like not even, like a week or even a few days later, and it was my birthday. I went home to Mississauga, and then right away on my birthday, my sister actually took me to the tattoo shop, and she gave me this tattoo. Shout out my sister, bro. It was like $100, $115. But anyways, yeah, that's the story of my first outer worldly experience. And that's like, this is not by any means, this is probably one of the lamest stories in terms of like people getting into spirituality. Because if you read The Power of Now, for example, Eckhart Tolle, he had like a depression for years. He was like suicidally depressed, and then all of a sudden he just got what was called a Satori experience, which is just like your mind just becomes clear and empty, and you're just completely in the present. And he just lived like that for 2 years, just sitting on park benches and shit. It was crazy. It was like, I wish I had an experience like that, but at the same time, I'm really happy with the experience I had. Like it was just a regular, just me tripping on shrooms and meditating. But it was cool because it really confirmed to me that there was something more, and I knew that it wasn't just happening in my head. I knew that this was something that was gonna lead me down something deeper. And so after that experience, I actually just started to read more on like spirituality and like kind of understand like what I just experienced. All through first year, actually, I got more into reading about spirituality and learning about like certain religious practices, and I took a course called it was like a religion course, but it was specifically about death and dying, like 10 different interpretations of what death is in different religions. That was my elective because I was so curious about otherworldly shit and spirituality and death and life. I remember that was also the time I started actually just reading for fun. The book I read was called Man's Search for Meaning. It was an amazing book, bro. I really highly recommend that to anyone. The author is a Holocaust survivor, and he talked about kind of what he thought the meaning of life was. But anyways, after that book, I was like, damn, this is a good book. Like, I realized I just really like nonfiction. Before that, I never considered myself a reader at all. It was also around that period too where I started developing this meditation practice. I tried to do it. I told myself I would do it every day for 10 minutes. I remember meditating for 10 minutes was super hard. Like, it was so hard to keep my mind just focused and not distracted. And I would get so angry when I would meditate because I couldn't keep my mind focused. I would get irritable. I kept thinking like, oh, when is it over? When is it over? Like, I would wait for the time to be over. And I wouldn't do it every day. It would be like, sometimes I would miss a day. And I remember it was just like, overall, it was super hard to get into. And I didn't understand when other people were talking about how amazing meditation was. Like, for me, it was just like, damn, this is a pain in the ass. Like, I can't do this stuff. And I was also smoking weed every day, and meditating when I'm high is really hard to me. For me, it's like hard to keep control of my thoughts and get them cleared and just focus on my breath. All in all, it was like hard for me to really follow through with this practice. However, now it's a different story. But also around that time, I also got into other spiritual practices. Semen retention was one I was practicing, even though that was incredibly tough. And I don't think I kept the streak for longer than like a week, maybe 2 weeks. Like, I didn't really receive any benefits because I couldn't last longer than a week or two. But those two practices, meditation and semen retention, are things that are part of my core foundation that I started taking seriously this year, and I'm still currently doing, and have very tremendously improved my life in many, many ways. And I might make a video on them, but that was around that time I started getting into it, thinking about, you know, eating more healthy. That year I stopped drinking sodas forever. My worldview, my way I saw the world and saw myself started changing, like, very slowly. Even now, it's like my understanding of the world and my understanding of myself, my true nature, is so vastly different than how it was when I was growing up through school. And even just like 2-3 years ago, there's a lot of potential in these teachings that are centuries old. Teachings by like Buddha and Jesus, they have survived the test of time. They've been taught and passed on for centuries. Even though they've changed a little bit by, institutional religions and stuff like that, the core concepts are the truth. Because only truth can survive for so long. Just understanding those concepts, I understood that there's a lot of potential to be learned in living them. If you decide to embark on this spiritual journey and you decide to really stick to it, these are some of the things that you can experience.